never wanted to work at a funeral home. It wasn't a lifelong dream or even a passing curiosity. It was a job, plain and simple. Something to pay the bills while I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. But that changed after my first week at Holloway Mortuary. Holloway was an old family-run funeral home that had been in operation since the late 1800s. It had seen thousands of burials, hundreds of grieving families, and more than a few rumors. The locals whispered about the place, claiming the dead didn't rest easy there. I dismissed it as small-town superstition. On my third night shift, I was alone in the embalming room. The air smelled of formaldehyde, and the fluorescent lights flickered sporadically. My job was simple: prepare the bodies for viewing and ensure everything was in order for the next day's services. That night, I was working on a man named Leonard Grayson, a recent passing. He was an elderly man, pale and lifeless, just like all the others before him. But something about him unsettled me. His lips were curled slightly, as if in the faintest of smirks. It was unnerving, but I pushed the thought aside and continued my work. Halfway through the process, the radio in the corner of the room crackled to life. Static hissed through the speaker before a faint, distorted voice whispered something unintelligible. I froze, the scalpel in my hand trembling slightly. The radio hadn't been on when I entered the room. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to turn it off and continue. I convinced myself it was just interference, an electrical glitch. I had been working long hours. I was probably just tired. Then I heard it. A faint rustling sound, like fabric shifting. My breath caught in my throat as I looked down at Mr. Grayson's body. His hands had been resting on his chest, fingers interlocked. But now they were apart. I stepped back so quickly that I nearly knocked over the table behind me. My heart pounded as I stared at the body, willing myself to believe I had simply misremembered his position. Maybe I hadn't placed his hands together at all. I turned away for just a second, and then the room was filled with a sound I will never forget, a deep, raspy exhale. I spun around, my stomach twisting in knots. Mr. Grayson's mouth hung open slightly, his chest motionless. But that sound had come from him. I ran. I left everything, my tools, my gloves, even my dignity, behind as I bolted from the room, locking the door behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pressed my ear against the cold wood, listening. Silence. For minutes, I stood there, heart pounding in my ears, convincing myself that my mind had played tricks on me. Maybe the body had just shifted naturally. Maybe the air escaping his lungs had been delayed due to rigor mortis. Maybe I forced myself to return to the room. The body was still there, exactly as I had left it. I finished my work as quickly as possible, keeping my eyes averted and locked up for the night. But the terror didn't end there. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard something just outside my apartment door. A soft knock, slow and deliberate. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to get up and check. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing but darkness. No one was there. But as I turned back toward my bedroom, I heard it again. A whisper. Just a breath away. Let me in. The voice was unmistakable. It was the same rasping exhale I had heard in the embalming room. I never went back to Holloway Mortuary. I quit the next day without explanation. But sometimes in the dead of night, I still hear it. The whisper, the slow knock, and the sound of someone breathing just outside my door.